Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to make bass music in the style of Bok Bok, inspired by his album Your Charismatic Self. The project file, samples and presets are available for a small contribution in the description, but be aware that a Splice membership is required to download one of the vocal samples. If you like this style, check out my How to Night Slugs video, also linked below, with the project available for free. Our BPM is 140. First we have the kick. Then we have the rest of the drums. Starting with the clap and snare, which are layered at points. In Your Charismatic Self, Bok Bok uses classic drum machine samples, often from 80s era drum machines like the Roland 808, 909, and Lindrum. Next, we have the high perks. Starting with two hats in a drum rack, which are together in a choke group. The rides and tambourines are also in choke groups. Then we have the rides. Next, we have the tambourines, which are panned within a drum rack. And then the shaker. There's mild saturation on the group. Finally, we have the pitch percussion, some of which has been panned inside a drum rack. In Howard, Bok Bok uses lots of this type of pitch percussion, again from classic drum machines. You also might notice the rolls, which Bok Bok admittedly does with more finesse than me. I've added this hip hop groove to all the MIDI in the drums group because I wanted a funky groove that was closer to some of the R&B elements Your Charismatic Self seems influenced by. On the group, there's parallel compression, EQ, and reverb via A. Here I'm using this short reverb as Bok Bok's music tends to be quite dry, bar the occasional use of delay. Next we have the basses. These instrument choices and arrangement are inspired by Greenhouse Night. First, we have an 808, which is a sample in simpler. Next, we have the square bass. This is playing an octave above the 808, which is why they can overlap at times. In Serum, we have a square wave taken down by 2 octaves. I spent some time messing around with the unison voices, detune, blend, and glide to try and emulate what I heard in Greenhouse Night. It's not as detuned as something you'd find in most grime, but it's obviously gliding square inspired. I've added a filter to shave off the highs, plus drive. There's distortion in the effects. On the channel, I've added a sound shaping EQ. And since the bass in Greenhouse Day is mono, I've used a mono utility. On the group, there's parallel compression and EQ, removing muddiness and the fundamental of the kick to avoid masking. Reverb is applied via A. Next, we have the melodic group. Starting with the electric pianos. The first is from Labs, which is of course free, with the library linked in the description. The preset is called Electric Piano DI. I've added saturator and EQ to brighten, as well as removing lows. The second piano is a preset from Electric. Again, there's saturator and EQ. These pianos are playing the same chords or variations of the same chord, except for the second piano at the end of bar 5. The electric piano chords and notes in Howard and the Foxtrot sound live and organic, and the layering helps achieve this, as does altering the notes' velocities and moving them slightly off the grid. I'm not sure what chords are here. I've just gone for something with an R&B feel. They're also different lengths at times, which creates this muted feel. On the group, I've added mild echo. Next, we have the saw horns. These are sus2 and sus4 chords, which are similar to what Bok Bok uses in Howard. This is inspired by the chord pad I used in my Night Slugs Howard, and it is a detuned unison saw with noise running into a low pass filter with its cutoff modulated by LFO1. There's distortion and flanger in the effects. And if we look at the matrix, we can see that note velocity is affecting volume. This can help the patch feel more live. On the channel, there's EQ and an auto filter with LFO active, and this creates more movement. Bok Bok uses real sounding horns in Melba's Call, so you could do this too. Next, we have the chorus pads. There are some very lush pads in Greenhouse Night, and this was my attempt at creating something similar. This is the first pad. This is very similar to the patch I used in my Tim Reaper video, which itself was inspired by a pad from a Stranger video, so I'll link both of these below. In Serum, we have a saw wave taken down by an octave, plus these two detuned waveforms shifted up by 7 semitones, which is what's creating the jazzy feel. There's also the noise. All of these are running into a bandpass filter with its cutoff modulated by LFO1. There's drive on the filter. And in the effects, there's distortion and phaser. Next, we have the chorus audio. I made this with the previous patch by reversing the MIDI, flattening it to audio, and then reversing it again, sort of how you do reverse reverb. This creates a more organic feel. The reason it's layered with the original pad is that it sacrifices some of the attack, which I wanted to maintain. I've also deleted some audio at bar 5 so the shout punches through. On the group, there's saturator, drum bus, EQ, autopan, which is modulating volume, and echo. Next, we have the high pads. This is made in wavetable and uses this vocal waveform with its wavetable position modulated by LFO1. And a bandpass filter with its cutoff modulated by LFO2. There's another bandpass filter on the channel with a faster rate. Plus an EQ. Finally, we have the 80s pads. This is a saw wave running into a low pass filter with its cutoff modulated by LFO3. In the effects, I've got hyperdimension. Normally, I'd use unison detuning, but here I preferred how the hyperdimension sounded. There's distortion too. In the matrix, LFO1 is affecting the master tuning, and LFO2 is affecting the amp. For both LFOs, I've set the rate and smoothing to what I thought sounded good and not too dramatic, and adding these random warbly LFOs helps the sound feel more analog. On the channel, there's drum bus to add more color and EQ, mainly to remove an annoying resonance. On the group, there's parallel compression, EQ, chorus, and bass mono for better mono compatibility. Reverb is applied via A. Finally, we have the effects. Here we have a chime providing more 80s vibes. A snare reverse, shout, and speech. For the speech, I wanted to make it feel old, so I added heavy saturation, vinyl distortion with crackle. Then I added a gate to stop the noise coming through when the sound isn't playing. So without the effects, and with. Finally, the group has drum bus, EQ, chorus, and reverb via A. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, and please leave any questions in the comments. I'll see you next time.